No, I just grab my phone in the shower and start texting Donna.
I don't want to know. I don't want to know.
I'm like, Donna, can you do a video call right quick? You're never going to believe.
You're listening to the Help Me with HIPAA podcast, where HIPAA and humor collide to make learning fun. Your delightful hosts are Donna Grindle and David Sims. Relax. HIPAA help is on the way.
Welcome to episode 437 of the Help Me with HIPAA podcast. My name is David Sims of HIPAA for MSPs, and joining me is Donna Grindle of Cardin. Good evening, Donna.
Good evening, David.
It's like 5 o'clock p.m. and dark.
I hate this time of year.
I do too. I do too. Oh, man. So today we're going to be talking about decoding CISA's HPH mitigation guide, which for me is very difficult to say because I want to say PHP every single time instead of HPH. For you tech nerds out there, you know why.
I know. There's too many times that all of the letters get jumbled up and then I can't work it out. It's like in the boot camp when I say that we're all about making sure that you can protect the maintain the CIA of all the PHI that you cremate. There you go. That's what.
Yep. And then everybody looks at you really weird. And then, 15 minutes later, they're like, oh, wow, this is so much easier.
There you go. That's your job.
Yeah.
Manage the CIA of the PHI that is cremated.
Yep. That is it exactly. So we like to look at the guidance. We like talking about how it applies to us and how we can use it. And of course, as what Donna said before we started recording, is it's yet another thing points to the fact that what we're saying makes a lot of sense.
Everywhere you try to look at it differently, it's kind of like the thing where I really want to prove I'm wrong, but I can't. Everywhere I look, I get the same results of data unless I just don't care about data and actual information, which some people just, that's their head in the sand. It doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. But for those of us who are looking around and seeing things, the left of boom, right of boom thing is happening all over the place these days.
Yeah. I consider it like being in a room full of mirrors. Like, no matter where you look, it is there. You might see it from different angles, but it's still there.
And that's scary enough because then you just freeze up because you see him like the dog that just freezes with a bunch of black cats. I love that one.
Yep.
Anyway.
All right. Well, before we dive into that, we do want to say thanks to our listeners, thanks to people who leave reviews, and thanks to those who join the Cardin Club or HIPAA for MSPs. Because guess what? You got a treat last week when we released our new website.
Yeah. We got all kinds of new cool things. My favorite part is Ask Murphy.
Yep.
AI bot that we have built inside our club and HIPAA for MSP so we can have conversations.
Yep. So my name for it got shot down. I wanted it to be Donna GPT.
No, it's Murphy the Hippopotamus, the mascot of the art club, in charge of everything. And, we had to have a name, and it was already there. I was going to use it.
Yep. So if you haven't looked at either one of those resources, go check it out. And by the way, if you happen to be in the rural areas of Florida and you're an MSP or IT provider of healthcare in those areas, you might want to reach out to me. I might have a special deal for you.
Oh, yeah. It's a great deal.
Yeah. I can hook you up. Trust me.
Yeah.
So,
there's nothing like getting ahead and having somebody else fund it.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And
it's not David.
Nope. It's not me. Talked to an MSP this morning who trying to get them through all the paperwork so we can get them in there. So, yep. And so it's a limited program that's available to people in certain areas of Florida. So anyway, reach out to me if you want to know more, and I can see if I can get you in there and get all your cost covered for that, for the CHMSP certification. And I'll even throw in some other goodies just because I'm a nice guy. All right. Speaking of being a nice guy, let's get into our briefs here. Why does HIPAA require an asset inventory, Donna?
Because if you don't know what you got, you can't protect it.
That's a perfect place to be in your briefs, right?
I don't know what's in there, and I don't know where it's going, what it's doing,
Yeah. But yeah, you're right. If you don't know where your PHI is, then how do you have any idea where to protect it, where to invest in those types of protections, whether it's your administrative, physical, or technical safeguards? You're going to roll that stuff out. And so many times we have conversations with people and they're like, yeah, we need to put security here. We need to put backups there. And we need this. I'm like, yeah, but where's your data? Oh, I don't know.
Well, let's start there.
Yeah, well, we kind of need to know where that is. Yeah. It's like, we're going to put all these locks on our doors of our house and windows and all that. And I'm like, well, where's your family? Oh, I don't know.
Yeah. We have to begin at the beginning. Yeah.
Yeah. You can't protect your family if you don't know where they're at.
Yeah. How old are they? How do they move around? How do you communicate with them? I mean, it's really, you've stumbled upon a good one there, David.
Yep.
But it's more of, I have to know where the data is. I have to know what software I'm using. I have to know what hardware I'm using to even know what could happen to it.
Yeah.
Because if I don't know that, I can't protect it, and I don't even know what to consider for protection.
Yeah. Well, the other part that's sometimes surprising is when you give somebody an asset inventory and they're like, I thought this was like decommissioned a year ago. Or they look at it and go, I don't even know what these are. Well, we need to check on that because you might have somebody else in your network you don't know about.
Yeah. And to remember, it's more than just computers.
Yes, it is.
Which is a great segue to the main topic, David.
So let's talk about some things that we learned from CISA's HPH. I have to really think about that. Mitigation guide.
Oh, I have to really concentrate to remember that it's the
healthcare, public
health sector.
Yeah, it's like using the word health.
Yeah.
Yeah, using the word health back to back just doesn't seem natural.
Well, CISA doesn't help that either. Cyber Security Infrastructure Security Agency.
Yep.
And I'm like,
well, I heard somebody from CISA pronounce it CISA, and I'm like, oh, now you done confused everybody.
I know. I hear CISA and CISOs and CISOs, and I, you know what? No matter who you're talking to, somebody's going to tell you say it wrong, except for it's a GIF. GIF. We're not going to talk about it anymore. It's a GIF. So now.
Yeah, because only choosy mothers choose GIF.
Bam!
All right, here we go. So let's talk about it. So we mentioned already that everybody's kind of throwing out the same messages, talking about all the responses that are happening. Just, you got to make sure you're doing everything you possibly can do to prevent the attacks and mitigate the damage.
Yes, prevent it from happening if you can.
Right.
And then accept that the likelihood of you preventing all of it is very small, and we're not going to assume that we're that lucky. Because it would be just luck. It's that one click. It's the one click does you in. And it could be any of us. I mean, just today we were talking with Elizabeth's like, I'm not clicking. That doesn't look right. And we had to do an investigation into it. She had every right to be concerned.
Yep. She had the red panda approach.
Yeah, we're gonna have to expand on that red panda thing. I mean, me and Elizabeth have laughed about that for years at this point. We got to expand on it. If you've not seen the red pandas stand up with their front paws straight up in the air, like I'm out, they're adorable. I saw a note somewhere that said the only defense they have is they're cute.
Yeah. You wouldn't hurt me, would you? Look how cute I am.
But move away from the keyboard kind of response. And you have to have that attitude today. But you got to take it a step further and say, okay, now, what do I have? Is it for real? Or is it Memorex? Does anybody know that?
Yeah, that's back in the day.
That's old people. So this is the Mitigation Guide, Healthcare and Public Health Sector that they have released for us. And you hear this kind of concept, like if you're writing, when you're learning how to write an essay, and it says, tell me what you're going to tell me, then tell me that, and then tell me what you told me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and the same thing over and over. And then when you look at it from marketing folks, and I love to see the people like online, especially now you get into Reddit and stuff, and they're complaining about commercials. These annoy me. But then they can give you all these details about the commercial. And it's like, they are working.
Yeah.
They work. They work.
Puppy monkey baby.
Yeah. Oh boy, that took me off there. I had a long time ago, like in my 30s probably. I was working with a guy that was the marketing guy, and I was working with him on a new product, explaining it to him, having to answer the questions. And he goes, well, what you have to realize is that you just have to say the same thing over and over and over in different ways. And if you're annoying somebody, that means they're hearing it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Otherwise, it's the first time they've ever heard it.
So, if it shouldn't be new information, and you got to deliver it multiple different ways. And we say the same thing about training.
Mm-hmm.
So the good news is this is another way to try to get somebody's attention to get to the same spot we're trying to get you to with Hiccup and any of the other things that we're talking about. And in fact, this new guide, they took a new approach that said these are 3 strategies. And each of the strategies have focus areas. A little different approach.
Mm-hmm.
But the same information for the most part. But here's the thing that my question here, when I saw this note, it starts with a data note. The HPH Cyber Risk Summary and this mitigation guide evaluates and analyzes vulnerability data from internet accessible assets of HPH sector entities enrolled in CISA's cyber hygiene vulnerability scanning and web application scanning services. So CIHI, you got to have that, CIHI VS or CIHI WAS. Was. Anyway, we got to have all these things, but the key here is it's coming from actual data. They're confirming in their scans the things that we think they are seeing. We said we think this is happening because that's our experience from the inside. They're scanning from the outside and seeing these same things and finding these kind of problems. So it takes these vulnerabilities, kind of meshes it in with some other things like the MITRE attack, which is adversarial tactics, techniques, and common knowledge framework. So there's a lot of areas where it takes all of that information, puts it together, and comes out with the exact same point that a lot of the other things do, but they're presenting it somewhat differently. So let's talk strategy, David.
Sure.
Strategeries. We have several strategies. So we got mitigation strategy number 1. Interesting. We just talked about assets. It's asset management and security. Or so there's 2 focus areas: knowing what you got, knowing how you secured it. Boom, boom. Let's move along.
I don't know. I think we could probably stay here for a long time. Some companies never get past this part.
Well, they never even go to it. They skip right past it and start. Their risk analysis is really a gap analysis, and that's a big thing. And we've talked about it before, which probably is time to do another one. There's a difference between the risk analysis and a gap analysis. If you just start looking and checking off what security you have, but you never evaluate what you have to secure, we're going to put a fence over there. We're going to circle this whole area. We're going to build up and put all, wait, all of our stuff is over there far to the left of that. Everybody's still over here. We got the camp is over here, but you built the moat. So I got to either move everything, so now we're in a different place. And that's the way they start. You can't begin in the middle.
Mm-mm.
Where do you need to begin, David?
In the beginning.
Dirt.
Even I could do
that. But it's my new little thing. If it can connect, it can infect.
I like it.
Yeah, we're using that one too. I'm gonna trademark it or whatever you got to do. But I've been using it enough now. I'm trying to get all those things out there. So if you take them, I got it documented. I was doing it. Those people that were at the bar when I came up with the idea too, they'll all remember it, I'm sure. Yuck.
That's where all the best ideas come up.
Yeah, that or when you're in the shower, you're like, oh yeah, I need to remember that. What did I remember in the shower?
No, I just grab my phone in the shower and start texting Donna.
I don't want to know.
I'm like, Donna, can you do a video call right quick? You're never going to believe.
Poking my eyes out right now.
Yeah.
So, back to asset management. The big issue here that, first of all, they point out repeatedly, this is high stakes. I mean, this is serious stuff in protecting patient information. I love basically they said the stuff's so valuable, the bad guys are going to keep finding new ways to get in.
Well, I mean, you said before, you need to treat it like they're gold bars. Every patient record is a gold bar.
Yeah. So you are taking one gold bar as a patient. Now, how many patients you got in your vault? How many gold bars? Because that's what they see. Yep. Whether you see it or not is irrelevant. That's what the patient sees. That's what your client sees. And that's what the bad actors see.
Mm-hmm.
So keeping up with your hardware, your software, and your data. We have to have an inventory of all of that. And so often we need an inventory of your hardware, and it's a list of all the computers that are being monitored or that are showing up. Mm-hmm. Is that an asset inventory for your hardware, David?
No.
Well, I mean, if I ask you for it, is that what you would give me?
Oh, yeah. If you ask an IT provider, that's typically what you're going to get. You're just going to get the inventory of things that are showing up in the report because that's what the scan found.
Mm-hmm. I love that I was at one of the conferences I've been at this fall, and I was having a conversation with somebody that's in charge of working with these small practices. And long story short, I was like, so what do you do about managing their asset inventory? How do you get that from them? Oh, well, they just get a list of the computers. I was like, well, what about the printers, the copiers, the firewalls, the routers, the access points, the mobile devices, the medical devices? And she just glazed over and she's like, oh no, I haven't even thought about asking about those. Yeah. And it's the lack of understanding and training. Mm-hmm. It was not a lack of desire. And it's like, now I got to start doing that. So that's the key piece there, though, is we need to get the word out. And this is just another way to do that.
Yeah. I mean, even within our tools, if I go to asset inventory and I click give me a report, it's giving me a report only of those things that I'm managing, not all the rest of the stuff.
Can you get a report that's like a discovery report or something where it scans the network?
Yeah, I can do that through my vulnerability management software, but not through my RMM.
Not through your where you would normally look for your inventory.
Right. Yeah. So again, you either have to have an MSP that understands what you need, or you need to understand how to ask for the proper thing.
Mm-hmm.
So, and both of them could be called asset inventory report, but one's only giving you some stuff and the other one's giving you completely different information that would be more comprehensive. So it's unfortunate. I mean, it's unfortunate that it has to be that difficult, but that's why dealing with an MSP or an IT provider or having IT staff, if you have those on site, having them have a full understanding of what you're supposed to be doing and what your needs are is so important, because you can cut through all the red tape of this is what I said, but this is what I meant, and you didn't understand, because they already know.
Yeah, it's kind of like thinking that you're at a restaurant and you say, I want this special for today. But they don't know that you have a peanut allergy. They don't know that you need gluten-free or whatever all of those things are. Or you're like me, if it's a pickle, I'm good, but a cucumber, I'm out. They don't know all of that. So they're not going to give you what you need for your environment.
Yep.
And that's what the big inventory. And then without that inventory, I can't secure it.
Mm-hmm.
I can't even guess what kind of security I have in place. So the asset management and security says, I got to know what I got and how am I going to protect it?
Well,
just the basic stuff.
It also gets into understanding what the vulnerabilities even are, which is why these things start with, here's where our threats are. Because if not, you're like, okay, here's the asset and here's the security. Let's move on. And I'm like, yeah, but what are we securing it against?
I know.
What are you trying to do here? Mm-hmm. Because what people tend to do is they take the approach that some doctor's offices take, right? They give you, let's just give you this shot or these pills that kind of cover a whole swath of things, because we don't really know exactly what we're dealing with. And so they'll do the same thing there with security, but that might be okay some of the times, maybe most of the time. Don't know. You need to identify where your risks are, because you might have all this other security that's great, but you still haven't addressed the risk.
Right. Yeah. I got all of these other things feel great, but my arm's still broken.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's still the same kind of thing. And that's the way that you have to look at it is I can rule things out, but I can't diagnose something I don't even know exists.
Right.
And so I've got to look for it. And in that security stuff, it literally at that point, it's looking at the big picture. So the top level is what I kind of see this as, is to say, it's looking at things like, how do you get into the network? And once you do get into the network, how is it secured inside the network? Not down to the password level, which most people think is security. Well, I use these passwords. That's not just that. That's a tiny little element of security. So they go into examples of mitigations like exposed ports and services, the database security where it'll let you launch SQL, SQL, however you want to name it, statements towards your database and pull data out from the web. That used to be a huge trick. And thankfully that one's gone, where I guess some of them still, like when you get to a login, enter a database query on where it says username, enter that, and it would run the database query and give you the answer. And a lot of breaches occurred because of that. Most of that should be gone now. But that doesn't mean there's not a new way for them to do the same kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then the big thing is segmentation. Please learn about it. If you don't understand it, learn about it. If you do understand it and you're not doing it, why? That's it. That's all you need to decide.
Mm-hmm.
Because you got to be able, I don't care if it's a tiny network, something needs to be, at least the concept of a guest network and a work network.
Yeah. Yeah, we had a client recently. They were moving into a temporary office, and the client that was already in that office already had equipment in there. So they started having these conversations about how are we going to segment stuff off. And within about 5 minutes of the conversation, I was like, why don't we just bring in an entirely new internet line just for you and bring in an entirely new router, firewall, switch, Wi-Fi access point. In other words, let's build a second network, because I don't trust these other guys are going to be able to do what we want to do, because we're talking segmentation and they're going, is that necessary? I'm like, I'm out. As soon as you ask me if it's necessary, I'm out.
Please. Is it necessary? They really did?
Yeah.
Was it IT people that asked that?
The management of the place. No, they look at me, they give me the same thing I get all the time, which is nobody else has ever asked for this. And I'm like, oh my gosh, if I had $1 for every time somebody responds to me like that,
we wouldn't have to be doing it for free.
Yeah. It's
well, we could do it for free. We wouldn't have the stress of needing to do some work that's not for free after we finish. That's a better way.
It reminds me of that big knockdown drag out I had with Barracuda Networks over their business associate agreement that was completely wrong. And they're like, nobody else has ever asked us to change the BAA. You're the only one. I'm like, well, I'm the only one that apparently ever read it and understood it, because it's not right.
Well, how many times do you hear, well, you just sign it. Whatever it says, just sign it. It doesn't matter. Yeah.
Well, the funny thing is they agree with me that I was right, but they still wouldn't change it. So I was like, okay, moving on. You'll figure it out.
So I do have because and I forgot to put this in the notes, and it's probably best that I don't put it in the notes, but when we have these conversations and we're reading from all these different entities who are talking about healthcare, sometimes you know that they don't know how healthcare works. And all these little ones, just like what you were saying, these little bitty ones will come in and they're like, was that really necessary? That seems like overkill for us.
Yeah. Until it's not.
Yeah, I've had ones that, have 6 or 7 locations, and they say we're too small to do it this way. We don't need it. We don't need our privacy and security program to be that complicated.
Yeah.
Well, new policies and procedures for social media, and that's not required under HIPAA, they said.
My new answer to that when it comes up is, and are you comfortable with that being your response on the stand when you're being sued? Because that's what you're going to have to do. Because when they call me up, you know what I'm going to say? I told them not to do that.
Yeah, absolutely.
I told them they needed these things that are commonplace within the healthcare environment, because things like HICP and CISA's HPH mitigation guide all point to these things. And I told them that, but they said they're too small.
It seemed like overkill for us.
Yeah. So there you go. If you're comfortable with that answer, when everything else says that's stupid, then you go right ahead.
Or you're comfortable with making sure that no one ever asks me that I told you that.
Yeah.
It's a big cover-up. You're going to have a big cover-up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And if you think that nobody will find out if you have a data breach, maybe you should listen to one of our past episodes where we talked about STC being notified by the hacker.
That was last week, wasn't it? It's recent.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this is not it's time to look at this differently, and that's really what we're trying to do. And this is looking at it differently. But I can assure you that most people will look at this and say, we're too small, or we already do that, but then they'll never go ask. I'm sure we have that. You know how many times I have those conversations with people at an exhibit hall? Oh, I'm sure we're doing all of that. Really? You're sure? Yeah. Do you do this? Do you know who this? So no, you're not.
Yeah.
You know,
At least say, when I get back, I'll verify that we're doing these things. Let me just confirm.
Yeah. But overconfidence is another part of the problem.
Yeah, absolutely.
So anyway, that gets us through our rant about that. Now moving on.
All right, we finished number 1.
Mitigation strategy number 2, identity management and device security. And so on this section, getting to this is, I'm on page 10 now, David. David made a point of saying earlier that I go flying off somewhere and he doesn't know where I take him. So, and on this page, it also points out right at the top of each of the strategy sections, guess what it cross-references to? Hiccup and CPGs, which both we now have the cross-reference to. So, yes, there's another, crosswalk between different versions, but you're always going to have that. That's the checks and double checks. Checks and balances, that's what we want to have.
Yep.
But for the most part, if you look at the CISA CPGs, which we did do an episode on, and the HHS 405D hiccup, you're going to see the same similarities that we talk about, we see in all of these cases. That it's all there, it's just stated differently or organized differently. So, back to the discussion about, they throw in things about HIPAA and PHI throughout the whole thing, which is good, and it has some great charts. And then you get to number 2, which is, this is basically the practices that we, these are those individual practices. And we're going to need to send them a correction. They got a typo. We know it's a typo because it's only this way once. Do you see it?
You on page 10?
Yep.
It is not jumping out at me.
Look at the last paragraph. That's all you need to see.
Oh, yeah, there it is.
Okay, but you've got this section, this strategy has the most focus areas, as they call them. But these focus areas are specifically the 5 of the practices under hiccup, with the associated sub-practices underneath them. So, email security and phishing prevention, access management, password policies, data protection and loss prevention, and device logs and monitoring solutions. So it's all lumped there together. And the first 2 all cross-reference to hiccup as well. And it's all the same things. It's like when you say this here, it's the same as when we say this over here. It's throughout the whole thing. And I found it very interesting to, you can easily track right down through there. Oh, yeah. I need to implement SPF and DCAM. Oh, yeah. How about doing that? Oh, wait, that's already over here in the other thing. So, yes, we are saying it multiple times. Yes, it is very good. And they have this really cool phishing indicator, embedded or spoof links, look for suspicious from addresses, be cautious with urgent messages. That's what I tell everybody. If it creates a sense of urgency or an emotional response, it doesn't matter whether it's that's so funny or this is a great deal or I got to share it. If it's creating any of those, it's probably something you need to seriously evaluate. It's almost, well, it's definitely something you should take the time to evaluate.
Yep.
And then, of course, everybody's gotten used to the misspellings, the grammar, the layout errors. But with AI, that's kind of going away now because the translations and everything are so much better.
Yeah. I mean, nowadays, I've got some people that if they send me an email, if there's not a spelling mistake, then I know that it wasn't them because they always misspell something. Which is, I mean, we laugh about it, but the point I'm trying to make really is that when you're reading something that's from somebody that you know, you should see a pattern of, oh, this sounds like how they talk or shows how they type or something. You know what I'm saying? You get if you sent me something or somebody sent me something saying this is Donna, I would be able to tell because I get email from you all the time. And I know your pattern of writing. I know whether or not you prefer long form or short form, all these little things. And so
where I'm going to throw in colorful language.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's, those are patterns that you should pick up on to indicate whether or not the person that you're hearing from, if you know them, is legit.
Yeah. So if somebody's telling you to buy gift cards, that is wrong. Never, ever, ever do that. And you need to teach all of your family, everybody,
because
we're talking losing 10-digit number, 6-digit numbers worth. People are buying these things and it's brutal.
Well, you would think by now, you think by now people would know. It would be so common knowledge, but it happens all the time still.
Well, but they're attacking people that never are in the orbit of cybersecurity.
Mm-hmm.
They still see it as somebody else's job.
Yeah. Well, I had a prospect one time. The question I asked them was something about cybersecurity and things. And they had a comment about, I don't think we need all this stuff. And I said, so I'm just curious, what makes you feel like you don't need all this? And he said, because I hire smart people. And I'm like, yeah, you're going to have a data breach. There's no doubt because you are too overconfident. It's just not going to happen.
I hire smart people too, but I do all of this. I wonder why.
Yeah. I hire smart people. That was his cybersecurity program. I hire smart people.
I guess they're smart enough to cover it up then.
I guess. I don't know because we decided we're just not a good fit for one another.
Yeah, no.
It's not you, it's me.
Yeah. Because I know this isn't going to go well. So then we have within the focus area number 2 is access management, where they talk about MFA. And I like this point, which we should start saying it. Implement MFA, ideally phishing resistant MFA. Mm-hmm. And CISA has a guide, believe it or not, yet another guide on implementing phishing resistant MFA.
Yeah.
So just so you know, it's no longer, remember when we used to say, all right, there's this 2FA thing, now we're going to call it MFA, and it's out there and you should really learn about it. Now it's like you have to know it.
Mm-hmm.
You should have already been doing it. And now you have to do it better than you did it before. It's like we're already on MFA. We went from 2FA to MFA to now phishing resistant MFA. And we got people that don't even have 2FA. They don't even know any of that.
Mm-hmm.
So the separate accounts, terminating access, and restricting privileges, elevated privileges, all of those things, controlling access. Those all sound familiar?
Yeah.
Okay, then we get on to focus area 3, password policies. No default passwords. Yeah. And that includes firmware on stuff. And your copiers and your printers and your firewalls and your access points and your on and on. And I do like that they say it should be a minimum of 15 characters. I agree. Some things still won't let you do more than like 8, and that just scares the crap out of me. But they have, some nice stuff. But again, get back to creating that passphrase and things that we've talked about before.
Mm-hmm.
Data protection and loss prevention. Oh, wait. Proper storage and proper credentials contained, and encryption. There we go. We should talk about that and how you control those. And then we get to focus area 5, device logs and monitoring solutions. That's the SIMs and all of those. These are all things we talked about over and over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
There might be a few points in here that, it's really getting to talk about the EDR and the XDR and all of those solutions where it's using behavioral analytics. But one of the cybersecurity guys that I talked to, he's like, yeah, as soon as yours starts figuring them out, then their AI starts figuring out what yours is figuring out.
Yeah.
And it's still getting around it.
Yeah.
So it's unfortunate.
The bigger problem with all that is typically there's that alert fatigue. So you're getting all these alerts, device log alerts, monitoring alerts, and eventually what happens is something critical comes in and it doesn't get seen. Mm-hmm. And so what's looking at the logs? Well, and I'm talking about alerts. Alerts can get missed, but what about logs themselves? What's looking at that? Are you, like you said, are you running it through a SIM? Are you having somebody put their eyes on it? What's happening? Because I know a lot of MSPs, they send the clients the information. They're like, here, peace out, figure it out.
Yeah, that's one of my pet peeves is you're getting these reports, and if you look at them and you see stuff on them, ask them, what are you doing about this? Because I should see notes. I mean, back when we used to do that, if there was something that kicked out that was an anomaly, we would put a note on that report saying this is what we did.
Yeah.
Or this is what we found.
Well, there's, at least for us, I can only speak for my business, but there is rarely a month that we don't send a report that there's not something on there that should be questioned. Because every month there's something that's not yet patched. There's something that has a vulnerability. There's, something that triggered something that we should look at. Every month there's something. So if you're not looking at that, you're not asking questions, nobody's bringing it to your attention, you can't, if somebody's telling you there's nothing to look at, then they don't have the right stuff. Because there's always something. There's always something there. And I tell people that from the beginning. When you get these reports every month, you're going to see problems because the problems are faster than the fixes.
Unfortunately, yes.
And oftentimes we know that there's a vulnerability or there's a patch, but because we have to go through a process, if we're able to, if it's not like some super high critical thing, we want to put that patching through a process to make sure we're not going to break stuff when we push it out. So you're going to see things that, oh, wait a minute, here's a patch and it hadn't been patched in 3 or 4 days. So look for that and question it.
Well, but so many times it's like, look, I pay you to do that.
Yeah, you're right.
Okay. You know what? I pay DoorDash to bring me my dinner, and if I don't check it before they leave and it ain't in there, it's my problem. They're not going to make sure it's okay. They're not checking it.
Well, go back to the comment I had. Are you comfortable on the stand with that answer?
Yeah, you're right. Because that is again what we have to say. Look, I'm only giving you the advice of things that I know I could sit on the stand and testify to, or write an affidavit, any of those things in your defense. Period. Now, because I will get asked. I'm going to say this is what I said. What had happened was, which though this conversation takes us to the mitigation strategy number 3, which is vulnerability patch and configuration management.
Yes.
which is what we've kind of already talked about. But I do love the fact that they did take a moment in here. There's some points that they made that I think are really good. One is it's interchangeable between vulnerability management and patch management. You can't have one and not the other.
Mm-hmm.
You can patch things, but if you're not paying attention to vulnerabilities that aren't patchable, you can't do anything about those. And if you see the vulnerabilities, but you don't patch them, you're in the same place.
Yep.
So it's all about managing risk. And then it makes a point. As vulnerability management is a continuous and evolving process. You don't do it on the third Wednesday of the month and then stop worrying about it.
Mm-mm.
Or the third Tuesday. But I then noticed how they went through this Gartner vulnerability management framework. That's kind of cool. But it says identify. And it says use your asset inventory and a vulnerability scanner. Wow. Look, we've looped back around. Assess and prioritize. Again, map your assets. It's getting back into, now we're referencing back to the things that we've done before. And it takes you through those steps, which, you identify, you assess and prioritize, you take action, you verify the action worked, and then you improve the process. That's a pretty thing. And then you have configuration and change management. And this is the one that so many IT people get mad at you or mad at me for telling them they need to do. Which is, oh, well, I can do that in my sleep. I can change those firewall settings in my sleep. I know you can. But what if you're asleep when I need to know you did it?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know when you did it. I don't know what you did. I don't know what it looked like before. I don't know what it looked like after. So I can't wait until I can find you somewhere, or till you get out of a coma, or you get back from Italy, or you're back on the grid. Any of those things. I could need to know that at any minute. If there is a problem, I need to know. And I've had a specific case where we wrote up the documentation, got a confirmation that the IT people used the documentation, but then when you really dug deep when a problem occurred, we found out the documentation that the IT person used was the first draft, not the final draft of what needed to be done. So therefore, all the things that were caught in the second and third draft weren't done. I have to know those things, and it's important for those checks and balances.
Mm-hmm.
So we must do that. And then they have one. This one, I'm not sure how they were throwing it in because it's not one of the mitigation strategies. But they are pointing out that we need to shift our design of products, software, regardless of whether it's firmware, whatever, to secure by design. We have to start by saying, how will this be secured? Testing for security, where the security is the core business requirement, not just a feature.
Yeah.
The security out of the box. I don't have to know to secure it. I don't have to. I mean, how many times do you get things? We've talked about it many, many times. Yes, I am using this, as we hate the phrase, HIPAA compliant software, but nobody told me how to configure it to be that way.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't come out of the box that way. So this is also where we went off the rails back in March with the whole discussion about changing, because we say everybody's on the cybersecurity team, but then it was saying, let's remove their responsibility. But what we're saying is, let's don't put all the responsibility on them. If we did a better job securing it in the first place, and I don't want the vendors to put all the responsibility on you, or on me, or even us using our own equipment. it needs to be secure by design. And so they've got that all thrown in there. They do include some for the, you got to get nerdy with it, the geek stuff, where they have the vulnerability, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 2 Apache, 2 PHP, and a Microsoft one, where it's got the technical details of the CVEs, the vulnerability, and it tells you what the compensating controls are. That's just a fancy way of saying, I can't fix it, but how am I going to duct tape it?
Yep. I'm going to work around it.
Yeah. So they do, it is restating the other things that we've said before, and there are some interesting points. They are adding new ways to look at it. So that's all good. And they are pointing out you can get, if you're in the HPH sector, you have to meet all the requirements, but you can get the free CISA monthly Sci-High vulnerability scan.
Yep.
But it is absolutely important that we recognize that, yes, these are the same things. In fact, they the summary of the list of things to protect from, they merged some of ours into one. I think they merged one of ours into one. So you got potential ransomware attacks, which encompasses the phishing and all of that, and social engineering. And then data breaches, loss or theft of equipment or data, and attacks against network-connected medical devices. So we know those all sound familiar, don't they? Yeah.
Well, the good thing about it is, like, I can walk into a client and I can say, here's Hiccup, here's the HPH sector, CISA guidance, here's CPGs, here, pick your poison. They're all going to get us where we need to go, but it's an abundance of evidence that the program I'm putting you in, the framework I'm putting you in, is not David's idea of good security.
No.
So when you say, well, I don't know, man, I don't know if you're just trying to upsell me something. No, look, it's in the framework. It's no upsell. It's in the framework. If you don't want to do it, fine. But it's not me telling you have to do it. I'm just following the framework.
Yeah. It's unfortunate that they treat a lot of us like used car salespeople.
Yeah.
I'm not selling a car. Really not. So there you go, David. We can also, they do point out when they do this announcement, they did point out that they also released what they call the Healthcare and Public Health Cybersecurity Toolkit. But basically, it's giving you all the links and to all of this stuff that we talked about. And they did it in conjunction with the Health Sector Coordinating Council, which we're part of, the Cybersecurity Working Group under that. 405D is part of that. So it's about the vast amount of this stuff is there. But one of the cool things that's in that toolkit that I'll leave you to go look at is they have a section that takes you to Secure Our World. And it's a CISA resource, and it has a section for personal, and it takes you through securing your personal stuff, business security, and then products and securing the products that are out there. So it's basically, as we've said, it's the same things, saying them in different ways, trying to get the attention, and I would love for us to have new things to worry about. I'm sorry. I would love for us to have different things to worry about and get rid of something on this list. We constantly have new things. I would like to remove things from that list.
Yeah. So we don't have to keep saying every year. I think ransomware is going to be a thing.
Well, and that's a perfect segue to say, next week is our recap of our predictions and where we think we're going next. And
we've already decided. We've already decided that we're not going to put AI on the list because that's a no-brainer.
Yeah. It's going to be a part of everything. It's everywhere.
Yeah, maybe next week we will let you hear our AI created rap. Help me with HIPAA rap. That AI wrote it, directed it, sang it, created the music for it, the whole 9 yards.
Well, you did direct it. It didn't.
Yeah, I did change. I changed a little bit of the wording and added some things in there.
And you didn't just take its first pass.
No.
You said, no, we need to do another take.
Yeah.
So without the human directing it, you do get crap sometimes.
Yeah, it is a human operated rap.
If you want to hear the early release of it, you can get an early release.
That's right. Before it comes out on 45s.
Yuck, yuck, yuck. All right, guy. It's been fun.
It has. All right, folks. That is it for today. Thanks for listening. Remember to share us out, follow us, and do all kind of cool stuff to let us know you listen, because we listen to you. All right. Remember, for Donna and myself, the HIPAA is not about compliance. It's about patient care.
You've been listening to the Help Me with HIPAA podcast, hosted by Donna Grindle and David Sims. The show created to help you with HIPAA. For more information or to ask us a question, visit our website at helpmewithhipaa.com. Neither Donna Grindle or David Sims are attorneys, and they do not offer binding legal advice concerning regulatory compliance. The information in this podcast should not be relied upon or construed as legal advice in any way. Consult your attorney for legal advice concerning compliance with HIPAA regulations.